Hey everyone, this is Lucas for LA's Toys and Comics. I know it's been a while, but I'm here with a special guest today, Mr. Payton Mullins, aka Two-Turn Tony Stark, aka the writer-creator of Astounding ALLSTAR, which is currently running on Kickstarter. Payton, glad to have you here with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. It's been a scheduling party.
Yeah.
But we're here. We're here. It's early in the morning. We're recording this on July 4th, so happy birthday, America. I see the Captain America shield in the background.
Yep, absolutely. Cap's like my guy. So I actually just got done reading Captain America #1 by Chip Zdarsky, where they released this week. So
What'd you think of it?
I actually liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was interesting kind of that we're going back like for, I don't know, the third or fourth time now and doing the he just woke up out of the ice thing again. But, all in all, I was really happy with it. I'm a fan of Zdarsky, so.
His Batman run, I thought, started really strong, and I think part of it got a little bit too into the DC universe. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, but his stuff in general is usually always strong. The thing that threw me on Cap, and I always talk about this because I'm an Iron Man guy. Is like, Iron Man, they move his origin up every so often. Vietnam, Iraq, whatever. I didn't think about that with Cap, so when it was like very clear post 9/11 vibes, I was like, but he just woke up. This should be the 60s. I hurt my brain thinking about it. But talking about comics, like obviously you talk about comics on your TikTok, but when did you know writing a comic is something that you wanted to do?
I think I had kind of a like an attraction towards doing it, pretty much for as long as I've lived, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've thought about, writing stories and making superheroes, but I never looked at it as something realistic. You know what I mean? Like it was just something that was like an abstract thing that, like people out there did, but I was never close to. But yeah, no, it was actually I'd been doing the whole TikTok thing, and I actually went like full time doing the content creation side of things. So I had a little more time on my hands, and my mom had just passed away, and she was like the reason I love superheroes. She's the one who got me on X-Men, Spider-Man, the animated series when I was little, and she was a big X-Men fan. She loved Storm, she also loved Wonder Woman. And after she passed, she was a painter, she was an artist, so I wanted to do something like creative, and kind of like chase a creative passion, and just kind of in her memory, you know what I mean? Like, and that's when I decided I could do it. I was like, why don't I try and put a script together? And obviously, I'm not an artist; I can't like draw, you know what I mean? I didn't inherit that or anything like that, but. I've always had I guess a proclivity for storytelling. So I was like, if I can do something creative in the world, that would be the route I'd like to go down. So that's kind of where all that stemmed from.
Yeah. Well, you are now 2 issues in to the Astounding ALLSTAR. As far as talking about the art, you're paired up with Julian Shaw and then Steve Cannon on colors. Was that something that you just kind of reached out on Instagram, or how did that collaboration begin?
Yeah, so Julian was on Twitter actually, is where I like first began talking. I'd been following him for a little bit, and I loved his line work, and I loved he even colors some of his own stuff that he'll post online, and I was just like, man, I was like, it's really good. It was like the style I wanted, you know what I mean? Like, and that I thought would really bring bring All-Star to life. I was gonna say he had like a lot of Ryan Otley, like Invincible vibes, you know what I mean? And I thought that kind of fit the character, so. So I reached out. I saw that he had posted and was just like looking for work, looking for sequential work or something like that. And I was like, well, I mean, he'll probably tell me no, I mean, I knew he had like all these Marvel credits and stuff, and I was like, but I'll ask anyway, So I sent him an email, and I kind of pitched it to him and told him the reasoning behind the story that I kind of started out with here on the episode and stuff. And he got back to me and asked about the script, and he read it, liked it, and we've been working together ever since. So
awesome. Yeah, and you guys are a great creative team. Like there's a lot. I mentioned whenever we were going to start that we're probably going to roll backwards from 3, 2, 1. But since we're talking about his art, you and something that you did with issue 1, here's 1 and 2 in front of us. Just to skip forward here, or skip backwards, I guess. You do some stuff that, so like, obviously we've talked about it before. I'm wanting to write as well. You're a lot more bold or maybe this was a Julian Shaw thing. You went hard on panels on certain pages.
Yeah.
Both of you did. This page has 11 panels. How was the scripting process for that?
Yeah, so it's actually
Pull that
Julian
from him on the
added
bakes.
panels. Well, I mean, so like, I think maybe when I wrote the script, it had 9, I think, or
Yeah.
8. But a lot of times, what he'll do for like pacing reasons and like to intensify a moment is add panels in. Something like seeing the RPG shootout and how he breaks that down into multiple. And even some of the stuff down at the bottom, like the fading to black stuff. Like I know I put that in, and I know that's not like conventional in a sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I kind of like this idea. It's almost a cinematic thing, you know what I mean? When you see like the screen fade to black and then come back out of it. So that's, but yeah, that's kind of what it loosely looked like. I mean, me and Julian have a really, I think great, collaboration, you know what I mean? And like, he knows that if he needs to add a panel or take a panel away, he has all the freedom in the world to do it, and that's, I would say a lot of that page I would accredit to him,
Yeah. And that's important for any collaboration. Like whenever I first started working with Jacopo, I was like, hey, there's a script, but you're the artist. You probably know visually better how this page is going to work. And I'm sure Julian's the same way. Like, his natural artistic instincts are going to kick in. But well, yeah, maybe we should add this or take away this. It was just something. I was rereading these issues last night. I was like, for a first time writer, 11 panels, that's bold. I'm afraid to do 7 panels.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I mean, and like I said, it's I think it was somewhere around 8. But there's times I really like to in issue 2. I like to like add a lot of panels if I'm going to do something like there's a flashback sequence in like, and it goes to a 9-panel grid for 2 pages, and like
open right to it.
Yeah. So the reason like that happened is because that's the only 2 pages in the entirety of the book where that like the grid format takes place. So it pulls you out of the story taking place in current time and like kind of firmly cements it in a different era just by the look of the pages, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and one difference from issue 1, to issue 2 is you start working with an editor. And your editor is Brittany Matter. Yeah. Now, especially on the 9-panel grid pages, did she help come up with that, or was that all Payton?
That was me. I did the 9-panel grid. So Brittany, what Brittany does a great job at is, for one, helped me with formatting, my scripts and everything. And like, that's what I've told her all the time is like, I was very, very much an amateur when me and Julian first started with issue 1. You know what I mean? And he had a lot of patience with me as far as like, the way the script looked and everything like that. And if he told me to change something, I would go back in and reformat the whole 30-some pages of script if he asked for it. Brittany helped me to where when Julian got the script, it was official. You know what I mean? It looked like an actual professional script and made me feel like a real writer. But yeah, I mean, she has great ideas with things like that. Like I said, I came up with the 9-panel grid, but like where some of the dialogue will lay within those 9 panels, like she'll have, you know what I mean? She'll like help me.
She puts her input in.
Yes, and kind of help with the flow of everything. So she comes up with great suggestions along the way. I'm trying to think of one in issue 2 that really stood out to me. But I think it was towards the end of the book, even, because she'll, as an editor, color everything. She'll give an input on that. And the sequence where, like, well, I don't know if I should spoil the entire ending of the sixth book. But anyway, there's the sequence at the end where she had a lot of input on, how we kind of see things switch back and forth from like the Spartan to like All-Star's point of view. I'll put it that way, so.
Well, you mentioned Spartan, and that gets us to the Kickstarter. If you're a comic book collector, then you would know that this is probably his first appearance, possibly, with a cameo in issue 1, and then we have his full cover reveal, in issue 3. Currently on Kickstarter, we have it's July 10th, which is the end of it. So we're what? I don't know what. It's July 4th. We have 6 days. 6 days left. How are we feeling about Kickstarter in general?
Yeah, I mean, look, right now these things are always stressful. You know,
Yeah.
I think every time I've done one of them, I was never going to do one again. You
Right.
know, but you know, I mean, they're great as far as like, I mean, well, you really couldn't; these projects couldn't exist without it. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, it's the only way feasible. You know, I mean, and everything. That's what I tell everybody. I talk about creating indie comics all the time on my channels and stuff. You know, there's a lot of different routes you can go, a lot of different people you can work with. The creative team that I'm with on this book, you know, I mean, the total amount of what it costs to make an issue of All Star is by the time you print it and ship it and everything,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's around $10,000. You
Yeah.
know, which I know, again, like I'm not trying to deter anybody who's making their own indie book. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely other people you can work with, and you can probably find lower page rates and things like that. But for the story I wanted to tell, you know, that this is the team that it needed to be, and
Right.
the only way to fund that team was through something like Kickstarter. You know,
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
anyway, I couldn't fund this out of my own pocket. You know, I mean,
No, I completely agree. I'm working with. I'm not working with a colorist. I'm not working with a letterer, or not letterer. Of course, I'll be working with a letterer. Working with not working with a colorist, not working with an editor, and it's still an expensive process. It's one
yeah,
thing, I don't know if you visit the Reddit comic book collab, the comic book collab Reddit. I'm mincing my words today, but there's a lot of guys on there that'll make a post and be like, "How do I get picked up at Marvel and DC?" It's like, dude, nobody's looking. Like, if you don't have anything in general, nobody's gonna look at
right.
you. So
No,
I don't want to say there's a cost to entry. Like, you don't have to spend $5,000, $10,000 to get in, but you have to make something, and a lot of times making something involves spending some money. Now,
absolutely.
if you can write and draw, oh, your costs go way down.
Yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately, some of us were not blessed with that, or do not have the patience for it because
right.
I'll spend a week or two on a script at most. That's draft, editing, revisions, all of it. Artists will live with that for a month minimum.
Yeah,
Like, it's just simple as that.
yeah.
Um, so once again, this is Friday, July 4th. Happy birthday, America. Your Kickstarter is currently getting close to the mark. You have a goal of $5,000, and we're at 3,800. We're right now. We're in the middle times. We're the middle slump for Kickstarters.
Right.
I looked at the numbers before it came on. And I looked at the preview pages. But what all are you guys offering on that Kickstarter outside of the issue?
Yeah,
Issue
yeah.
3.
So we have we're doing like so we had the way I wanted to do it because like I had things that I offered previously like shirts and prints and
Right.
things like that. And I was like, you know, I wouldn't care to bring those back. So like especially like our big total package, like we have one set up for returning backers so that it's all new stuff and they don't get, you know, any duplicates of things before. So, you know, a new all-star shirt, 2 new all-star prints, a new sticker bundle, things like that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what we do. You know, like I said, we have 2 different shirts now. I think probably up to 4 different art prints. You know, Julian doing I think 2 of them, and then I know I've had an artist I worked with who's actually doing the B cover. You know, he's done a print for us as well. Panda, big shout out to him. Love that guy. But yeah, and then we have 2 different variant covers of issue 3. We have, you know, the digital bundle. So if you know, I know a lot of people, depending on where you live in the world, may not want to, you know what I mean, like pay for the shipping and everything like
Yeah.
that. So we even have like the digital catch up where you can get all 3 issues, you know, digitally. So we try to offer a lot of things, you know, to help incentivize people to want to back it and to get as much out of it as they possibly can, you know.
Right. Yeah. And that's another thing of Kickstarter is like not only are you selling a comic, but you're also selling perks.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of gears turning away to Kickstarter. But you know what? It is a community driven thing. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
But as far as issue 3 goes, we have seen Jason fight the Assimilator. We have seen him fight Mirage. What can you tell us about Spartan?
Yeah, so with the Spartan, you know, it kind of falls into a little bit of a, you know, a familiar trope with you kind of see like the MCU movies do this thing a lot where like, you know, the hero fights an evil version of themselves. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
similar powers and things like that. not to deter anybody, but I mean, it's like, because I think it works, thematically for the story. But yeah, this is Spartan is all the strength and the power and the speed of All Star, but with none of the inexperience. The Spartan, and I can't really dig into his backstory yet before people read everything. But Spartan has been trained from the time he was like 4 years old to be the ultimate weapon, the ultimate warrior. The thing that, like, basically the antithesis to All Star. If All Star represents youthful, like, exuberance and inexperience and, naivety, the Spartan is the exact opposite of that. You know what I mean? So, this like comic sees the two of them really coming head to head for the first time and, actually fighting each other. And, we kind of quickly see how much, like, that experience matters and, just kind of how much out of his depth All-Star really is.
Yeah. And at the end of issue 2, there was, of course, an inciting incident for these two to butt heads, and we've seen. I lost track of thought, but we've seen Jason develop as a superhero already between these 2 issues, and he prefers a non-violent solution when he can.
Yeah.
With what happens in issue 2, do we think we'll find that non-violent solution with Spartan?
Well, yeah. So that's the thing is, the story is written, over 5 issues. So that's the character arc takes place over the 5 issues, right? And if Jason starts in this place of, like you said, preferring to de-escalate and preferring a non-violent, solution, we got to put him through the ringer, right? We got to really put that to the test. And so that's kind of what this altercation with Spartan's going to be. He's going to be pushed to the point to decide, am I willing to kill somebody? You know what I mean? For the greater good, for whatever reason. Like, I mean, that's what. So he's going to be pushed to that point, to the ultimate violent act, right? Is kind of what I want to get him in the situation of, and then obviously we'll find out his decision by the 5th issue. So, but that's yeah.
Yeah, well, that brings me to, so the Assimilator was kind of one off, Mirage was kind of one off. So is Spartan going to be kind of the overarching big bad? Maybe not him, but is he going to be the heavy for the next couple issues?
Yes, yeah. It's
what you can say, obviously.
Right, yeah, no, it is. It's like, so the Spartan's been something in the background of issue 1 and 2. I mean, he was teased at the end of issue 1, and then we kind of we spend like 2 pages with him in issue 2. And then obviously the finale of issue 2. But this book opens up with the Spartan. So you spend the first 6 pages actually with him, and get his perspective and find out his motivation and kind of see what he's about before, we get to the one-on-one action between the two of them. But yeah, he is going to be the focal point of the remaining issues of this story arc. So,
yeah. So you mentioned that we're going to go 5. This is a 5-issue story arc.
Mm-hmm.
Why 5?
5
just random.
Yeah,
most are 4 or 6. 5 is an interesting choice.
Yeah, 5. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of an artsy thing with it, with the like the 5 points on a star, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so with like the all-star thing, but it just worked out for me. I don't know, what your process is, or like with writing, but when I had it mapped out, like on a character arc journey, right? You kind of have this, like, your issue 1 would be, if it was a movie, it'd be your first 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's the end of your first act, basically, of your character arc. And just the way it was paced with that first issue, and then the way, like, that I was going to take the story and kind of mapping out what needed to be in each issue, I was like, there doesn't need to be a 6th. I was like, there's too much. Because what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a lot of information coming in issue 4. I mean, there's going to be a lot of, like, action and suspense and things to keep you interested and engaged in that issue. But issue 4 is going to be, like, answering a lot of the questions that have been been building up over 1, 2, and 3. And that's something that, even people, and I've heard criticisms, and they're valid, you know what I mean? They're like, I want to know, like, what's, like, like something like even the accident that gave All-Star his powers. Like, I haven't revealed that yet. That's a part of the coming issues, you know what I mean? Like,
I think we've seen 2 panels of it. And so far that's it. Right,
and that's something that I wanted. I wanted to do. I wanted this like like not a slow burn, but a mystery in the background of this action story. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of I think of mysteries that people want to know. They want to know what happened to All Star. You know, they want to know, who the Spartan is, and like, which will be revealed in this issue, by the way.
Okay.
So that's, his identity is revealed in this issue, which I think is a big step forward in the story. But then you want to know his background and what happened to him and how he got there, and then we're going to find out about All Star's parents and General Arno, and like, all their stories kind of come to a head in issue 4, and then issue 5 is the big finale to send it out the door.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and you said valid criticism of wanting to know All Star's origin. I don't know if that's a valid criticism, because you are just reading the first 2 issues. Like, you're telling a very deliberate story.
Right.
Yeah. It's like watching Infinity War and being like, I want Thanos to snap these guys in the first 5 minutes. It's like, no, it's a build up. Like, there's a reason. This is storytelling.
Right.
I do like your you kind of waved it off as like, oh, it's kind of RT 5 points to start. I think every choice in a comic book is deliberate. Whether you or the artist put it on the page, you make that decision.
Right.
So the decision to make it 5 issues, because 5 points in a star, it might seem silly, but thematically it makes sense. And I agree. I think that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And there's a lot of things, even like, like the whole, like the story title is called like Solar Eclipse, and like that doesn't like really sound like it pertains to anything. You know what I mean? Like in actual stories as it takes place, you wouldn't read the story and go, "Oh, I see that now." You know what I mean? Like, but what it is obviously, All Star, like the sun is a star, right? So I mean, you think about what happens during an eclipse, right? The sun's being covered. And, an eclipse is something that takes place in phases, over time. Like, I mean, obviously it's a gradual thing. So that's why issue 1, it's so bright. It's so like fast paced. It's a lot of action, a lot of hopefulness. You know what I mean? Like it's just the sun, and that's like, there's a lot of like really campy dialogue, and it should feel like you're reading like these old school, like Golden Age or Silver Age books. It's a modern story, but like a lot of the vibe of it should be like, a bygone era of hope. You know what I mean? Like, and then issue 2, right towards the end of it, is when like that darkness begins to overtake it. And that's why, like, so issue 3 and 4 and really kind of 5 is going to be like the complete, you know what I mean? Like the darkness of an eclipse. And then at the end of issue 5, and then at the end of issue 5, it comes back out of it. You know what I mean? Like, because eclipses end. So, but yeah, that was kind of the thing. And like I said, even that I think is a little too artsy just to sell people on. You know what I mean? Like when explaining, because people will be like, oh, it's very, very campy, very kind of cheesy at times, and I'm like, yeah, but also, you know what I mean? Like I wanted it to be
deliberate choices,
right? And that's the thing that's hard. It's like you don't, even in like TikTok videos and stuff, there's never enough time to tell everyone everything that you planned on doing with this book. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the thing that I think is the hardest about trying to pitch it to people, is being like, oh, well, I'm doing this and this and that. You know what I mean? Like, which some things they don't need to know. I actually just listened to a interview with Jonathan Hickman, and he was like, dude, I wouldn't even he said, I wouldn't care if the cover says anything about the book. He said, I'd rather know nothing going into it, which he can afford to do because he's Jonathan Hickman. But
it's very similar. Matt Rosenberg on I Just Don't Bleed tells us, he's told it a couple times about working at Marvel and going to lunch with one of the editors, and the editor goes, "Yeah, Ta-Nehisi Coates has already turned in like a year's worth of scripts, and some guys can afford to do that." And Rosenberg's just like, "Yeah, like how do you do that?" And the editor was like, "I don't know, Matt. Become a genius." It's like that's the same thing with Hickman. It's like how do you get away with no solicits and nothing on the cover? It's like, I don't know, man. Just be a genius.
Yeah. If you can be Jonathan Hickman, then you're fine.
So, but I understand where you're coming from, and also like I was just thinking, my comic is a one shot, and I'm working on the second one shot. So figuring out how much to divulge in a one shot, how many pages in a one shot is one thing. Because this first one's a 24 page. This next one, I was like, I'm going to stick 24 pages. And I got to page 24. I was like, man, this climax is rushed.
Yeah.
And so do you start cutting or do you start adding at that point?
Right.
It's the creator's dilemma. But talking about next issues, we have issue 3. It's on Kickstarter. Go back to Kickstarter, people. It's on Kickstarter. Has work started on issues 4?
No, not yet. Well, I mean, issues 4 and 5 from my end are pretty well. Like, I've got to tighten up scripts, but I mean, my part's done. You know what I mean? Like the creative team, like they always are waiting on me. You know what I mean? Like, which I guess that's any book, but. But I mean, as far as like saying like, hey, we got it with this date, you know, is when the Kickstarter is going to launch. So if you want to go ahead and start working by this point, like, you know what I mean? Like scheduling and things like that are not things that I'm good at. So they're usually waiting on me to go like, okay, guys, I think we're going to launch the Kickstarter here. Here's the script. Let's start working. So yeah, there's no work on that done. Really, like on the issues 4 and 5, but it'll be down the road. Issue 3, that's the thing with this one, is like where it kind of took me a little while to get the Kickstarter launched. You know, some things were happening in life and I just couldn't get it out in time. So like this book's done. You know what I mean? Like I mean, I have to, you know, pay to finish colors and pay to finish letters, but I mean, the letter is done. He was like, you know, it's like, let me know and I'll slap it on top of it and we'll go, you know? So yeah, we're just kind of just waiting on the Kickstarter to get funded and everything, so I can afford to pay everybody, and then we can just, you know what I mean, like get it out, which is ideal, right? Because I know a lot of the time the hesitance that people have with Kickstarter is they don't know when the book's coming. You know, I know a guy who backed somebody a year and a half ago, and they're still waiting to hear anything. You know what I mean? And like so. Everybody's different on Kickstarter. You know what I mean? I like my first one took forever. I mean, like I think, you know, we didn't fulfill rewards on it until like 6 months later. And then like I took over the shipping on the second one, and I think we got the rewards out within 2 months, which is like, I feel like a lot tighter and a lot better. You know what I mean? But like I said, in this one, really once the Kickstarter ends, I'll be waiting on funds to come in, you know, and then just printing time, and then everything will be in the mail. So that's good at least.
Yeah. Any way that you can shrink that time and you can make it I can't think of a word, but you make it better. You make it tighter. You hit those deadlines. You streamline that process is always going to be good. And you mentioned that the book is, you know, outside of, you know, some colors and lettering, which this is I don't want to write off letterers, because letterers are talented. They're fucking they're integral to these books. But lettering is one of those things similar to the script. Like, you know, the artist is going to be with this book for a month, maybe a month or two. A letterer spends a similar amount more time than a writer, I think, but less time than the artist. Like, lettering is a fairly quicker process. But just saying that the book is, you know, would you say 80% or 90% done?
Oh, 90, yeah.
Right.
Maybe even 95. My colorist is actually like, everything's down. He's just got to go back in and like, there's like 5 notes that I gave him that he needs to finish. You know what I mean? Like, but also I still owe him for like half the payment. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I understand that.
I'm sure he's not gonna, you know, rush to do it until he's paid in full. So I get that completely.
Yeah, I am currently, so my book is 95% done. Just waiting to get it lettered. I'm reaching out to the letterer on Monday because I get paid on Friday, and I can be like, oh yeah, here's the rest of the payment.
Yeah.
But no, just saying this 95% done is such a feather in the cap, especially on Kickstarter, because I've seen Kickstarters. I've been stalking them as someone who is going to do Kickstarter later this year, and it is, you run the gamut of guys that are completely done, guys that are halfway done, guys that they're just like, hey, here's a proof of concept. I need money to start.
Right.
And of those 3, which one are you going to back? You're going to back the one that's done or almost done. And I think that's just a sign of quality. That's a sign of, I don't want to say competence, because it makes it sound like the other ones are not competent, but it's a sign of a clearer vision. And I think that helps the consumer to pick what they want to follow.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only downside to it is that people might look at it and go, well, he's already paid everybody. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't need the support. You know what I mean? Like, the art, you know, which I mean is not, you know, like I said, completely true. I mean, I still have, like I said, colorist owes, you know, half a payment, letters needs paid, editor needs paid, things like that. But they don't know that. So when I say the book's done, they're like, "Oh, it's done." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't think that there's so with like issues 1 and 2 where I needed money up front to pay anybody to kind of get it going. You know what I mean? Like, I think there was more of an urgency. You know what I mean? They feel like, oh, like he's got like if we don't support this now, it'll never get made. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then like when alternatively now with this issue, kind of, and again, it could just be me taking the wrong lesson from how this Kickstarter, you know what I mean? Like it has went down so far. But I do feel like there's a lack of urgency. They're like, oh, well, it's going to get made one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's the only thing to put into consideration on that. But
yeah, well, we still have. By the time this goes out, it'll be 4 days. So we still have a week. You know, about a week left. So we're gonna pump it hard. We're gonna see some backers come on, and I think it's gonna get funded. I'm really excited for it. So we're in July. Kickstarter ends July 10th. So we're thinking, let's see, August, September-ish for fiscals.
Yeah. I mean, it's even honestly August probably. I mean,
okay.
It's the holdup is waiting on Kickstarter to release the funds, which can take up to 2 weeks. And then once I have the funds, then I got to put the order in with the printer. Assuming that I have everything ready to go that day, which I should by that point. Because like I said, the stuff needing finish is just kind of like minor details, right? The book's put together. Like I might have a design page or two that needs, touched up. And like I always add all the Kickstarter backers to the end of the issue. So things like that. But then it goes to the printer, and then you got to wait 2 weeks for the printer. And then, by the time. Yes, they're all there. So then, like I said, you got to wait for the funds to be released and send it off to the printer. And then usually I'm at least 2 weeks waiting on things to get back from the printer. Sometimes more like 3. But by the time I have the books, then I'll begin. And that's the thing, trying to ship out 100 to 200 orders will take a week or two. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I mean, September would be like the absolute latest. But I would imagine most people will start seeing their stuff, mid-August, early to mid-August.
So once the book funds, once the books funds, you get the books out by September, do you think you'll see issue 4 Kickstarter this year, or do you think 2026?
I'll probably wait to the beginning of 2026. I try to follow somewhat of a quarterly schedule, you know what I mean? Like, but from everything I've understood about Kickstarter, and this is funny because my first one was in December, but like November, December is not the time to do it. You know what I mean? Like, because people are, holiday spending and you know what I mean? Like things like their focus and priority wouldn't be on a project like that. They're thinking about buying their kids toys, rightfully so. You know what I mean? Like, especially in this economy. So just for that sake, I'll probably have things in motion and hopefully have things a lot smoother. That way, when launch goes up, at the first of 2026, again, it'll kind of be like this one, that once the Kickstarter ends, things will be going out, But so that's the plan as of right now.
So one last question on Kickstarter. This just popped up in my mind. So you've talked about doing shirts and doing some of the other stuff. Is there anything? Actually, another question I'll have after this. I just popped in my head. Is there anything that you haven't offered on a Kickstarter that you would love to offer, whether it be silly or something really cool that you just haven't, just either haven't had the funds or haven't had the time to do?
That's a great question, man. Honestly, I don't know, and I haven't put a lot of thought into something like that in the sense of like, I think half of my struggle is figuring out what people would want. You know what I mean? Like,
100%. Yeah.
Because like that's what's tough about an indie project, and I have and don't get me wrong, there's fans of All Star that are like, I want a shirt, I want the merch, I want everything. You know what I mean? I want posters of All Star up on my wall, which is nuts. You know what I mean? That people like care that much about it. You know what I mean? But that's been the tough part is juggling, because that section of the people of that read, that back and support and stuff, that's probably 5 to 10% of people. You know what I mean? That want all the stuff with it. Most people are just looking for a book and maybe something cool to come along with it. So that's been the hard part for me, is figuring out what do you want? You know what I mean? Like as a Kickstarter backer, outside of just if you're investing in my story, what is something that you would look for? So that's the thing that I've kind of had a hard time juggling, is figuring out cool ways to incentivize people. Like if it would be like a big All-Star poster, like an All-Star cutout, or you know what I mean? Like things like that. pin up, anything, but it's hard to assume people would want some kind of like cool merch about a character that just came out. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so that's the tough part for me. I think that, okay, to answer your question, because this is a lot of words without an
Oh,
answer.
you're fine.
I would want like a foil cover or something of All
Okay.
Star. That's something I haven't done, and I haven't even looked into like figuring out how you would go about it. But like a foil, I think would be cool because like
Right.
it's part of like as a comic fan myself, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like I couldn't tell you how many things I picked up because of the foil cover, but
Yeah, it's that collector mentality that a lot of us have, and I have a
right,
couple. My day job is a comic book retailer, and I have a few guys at the store that they'll tell me the new Lady Death is coming to Kickstarter, and it's got this foil cover, or it's got this enamel pin, and so that puts in the mind of what do people want on Kickstarter? Because you would think they just want the comic, they just want to see the story, but a lot
right,
of the times it is not necessarily the freebies, but just the swag, the extra swag that people
yeah.
really kind of get drawn to. Um, Now, if that's an enamel pin or a resin statue, that's two different things. Also,
Right.
how do you ship a resin statue with that comic without it being massive and expensive?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other question I had, and this goes less to Kickstarter, but this goes back to the story of All Star, and this is going to be a little bit of a cheeky question. My one question for story in issue 3 is: does Jason get knocked out again? Because it's become a running gag.
It's a bit of a thing I tend to fall into for sure. God, let me think. Oh, yeah, he does. Actually, he does. It's towards the. That's so funny. It's like Jean Grey fainting in the X-Men
Right.
animated series. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not so much he gets knocked out, but like it's not from physical force. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like there's a gas that's used to like sedate him basically.
Yeah.
So it is like, but there's no flashback in this
Okay.
one. So that's what this time when he gets knocked out, there's no flashback. That's funny, dude. I hadn't even
Well,
considered that.
granted, I think every writer has little, and artists as well. But I think every creator has like these little things that they, I don't want to say use as a crutch, but they'll insert a thing. They'll insert the comics, whether subconsciously or consciously,
Yeah,
and having him get knocked out and then having a flashback. Well, obviously, issue 3 won't have a flashback in that way, but it's an easy way to go into flashbacks.
super easy.
It's just easy storytelling 101. It just caught me off guard because I reread these last night back to back, and I was like, oh yeah, he was just talking about risking CTE on the football field, and now he's getting knocked out in these big superhero fights.
Oh, that's so funny, man. I'm thankful that you pointed that out because that's something I had not even yet noticed, and I would say most people haven't either because the nature of Kickstarter, there's just this gap between when you read them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, which I've had a lot of people since then come back and get issues 1 and 2 together, so maybe they've picked up on it too. But no,
Right.
that's so funny, and honestly, I hadn't even like there's things about my writing that I noticed, but that's something that I've never that had been pointed out before. That's hilarious to me. So thank you for that.
Listen, every once in a while I'll have a gem.
Yeah,
but I get it. So issue 1 of Swordfire starts in a bar, and then the second one shot I was like, what could I do? Oh, a bar. And then I'm already thinking of ideas for issue 3. I'm like, there's got to be a bar. I'm like, I don't drink. Why do I keep putting these characters in bars? But it's an easy shorthand because that's where for these characters that's where work can come from. So it's very very easy shorthand to get them from point A to point B.
right. Yeah. It's these kind of like you said, easy plot devices almost that you said.
Yeah.
What happens in a bar? What I mean, like you said, a lot of for them, like that's where the work can come from, or that's where fights can break out, or you know what I mean. Like that's it's. And like I said, and for me, like the passing out or getting knocked out, it turns into, like you said, a flashback, or it's an easy way to transition to a different environment. You know what I mean? Like, so that's definitely a little bit of a crutch that I've used.
We all have them.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have been going for almost 40 minutes. My question now is, how much time do you have?
Well, I'll put it like this.
I don't want to keep you too much longer.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it like this. My phone is on 17%, so we got until that's out. So
I was surprised. The first guest I had when I started doing this was Mr. Matt Rosenberg, who was great, and I was like, man, this will be like a 20 minutes. I give him in and out because he's busy, and I was like, hey man, how long do I have you for this interview? He was like, I just keep it under an hour. And I was like, I'm going to talk your head off. Yeah. Let's go. So just talk a little bit more about the character specifics in All-Star. Like we've talked about Jason, and he's the main character. We know what's going on with him. Star athlete student, comes from a good family, becomes a superhero trying to do the right thing. And issue 2, we shed a little bit more light on his father, who also wants to do the right thing, but understands sometimes there's a game to be played, and that makes him butt heads with Jason. Are we going to see more? I don't want to say family drama because that makes it seem like it's a whole other thing. Are we going to see more moral compasses collide with issues 3, 4, and 5 between the family?
Yeah, definitely. And really through the whole cast of characters. I mean, that's the thing. Is like there's a really tight cast. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I mean, obviously we've had other characters involved, but for the most part, it's All-Star, his mom and dad, Arno, and Spartan. You know what I mean? And like it's these 5 characters, and like I want like these conflicting points of view, like you said, with morality. And I don't know, man. Family drama. I don't hate the like you say that, because that kind of is the crux of it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what we're going for here. And like you said, I know that like it's like putting it like that kind of almost like undermines it in a way, because people might want to roll their eyes to it, but it is a little bit like of that. You know what I mean? It's messy, and like you know what I mean. Like it's not necessarily that well, I mean. Yeah, I don't want to say any of them, but that these people are not purely evil. You know what I mean? Right. Like there's like, they're all. That's what I'm trying to like show through this, is that they're all like good in their own idea of goodness. You know what I mean? Like, but they're all fallible, and they've all made mistakes, and they've all done things that they've probably regretted at some point. You know what I mean? And like the being with Jason as the point of view character is just kind of him finding out that everyone is this valuable. You know what I mean? That like, that his parents aren't exactly the people he thought they were. That, because he's got this like pie in the sky idea of people and morality and of systems and of, of everything. You know what I mean? Like just had a super privileged point of view that life's been great and everybody must be great, and that's the thing, is like I want him to learn through all of this, is not only are things tough out there, you know what I mean? Is like is it hard just to go out there into the world, but things are tough right here, you know what I mean? With people that you thought you could put all of your faith in. So that's kind of like what I wanted to explore.
Yeah, and I think you're doing a great job of it. The dialogue with his father. Just that plot point of, hey, we're going to do this good thing, but I need to benefit from it in some way.
Yeah,
that's a big thing in a superhero comic. Of it's like because his dad's not technically wrong,
right?
It's just maybe not morally right.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Is like, and that's why I think the flashback earlier in issue 2 is important, because you do see this moment where his dad, like, really just like, he teaches him, a very good lesson. And he's really heartfelt. He's not too hard on him. You know what I mean? Like he does all this, and like he just seems like, and you get to see this moment of the past, and you get to see the snippet of like just a great dad and his son. You know what I mean? Like, and you fast forward to now, to like you said, he's not necessarily wrong about it. You know what I mean? Like, but it feels gross. You know what I mean?
It's icky.
It's icky. It's gross, and it's something that I think for a lot of us, it would turn us off. You know what I mean? Like, and that's me included. I mean, that's something that like, this is an example I'll use. Like it's those videos of people feeding the homeless. You know what I mean? Like where they stick a camera in their face, and it's like, homeless people are still getting fed, You know what I mean? But it feels disgusting that you're using them for
For
millions and
clout.
millions of views. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like, but that's just a little snippet of like, ways that the dad is willing to compromise in order to do what he considers the most good. You know what I mean? Like, and that's going to get further explored throughout the remainder of these issues.
Yeah. And as far as the next couple issues go, so the heavy focus is going to be Spartan as the main antagonist. Are we going to see more, I'll say B-side villains, like a Mirage or like a Assimilator, or is it just going to be kind of straight into, okay, we're going into our end game with Spartan?
Yeah, so
they're fun villains so far.
Yeah, I've enjoyed them, man, and it's like we are just gonna be with Spartan from here on out. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, but there's things that kind of I unfold. I'm trying not to give away too much.
Right.
Like, you find out that he's facing more than just Spartan. But now, as far as villains, that was part of like my whole plan with the solar eclipse thing. You know what I mean? Like, you get a villain of the week early on, and you get these like, you know what I mean, like kind of campy, like little sequences and stuff between him and the villain and things like that. I mean, that's even like, straight up with Mirage, like the whole sequence where like All-Star laughs at Mirage's name. Like that was like pulled straight from like very much inspired by like Spider-Man meeting Spot for the first time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where he falls over in laughter at the ridiculousness of the name, so but yeah, so part of the tonal shift towards this more dark and hardcore kind of like part of the story is removing or like that section of it, the B villains, the villain of the week, I mean that's which breaks my heart to do because I love coming up with these guys, but yeah.
But no, it's necessary streamline the plot. Once, like you said, you only have 5 issues total to tell this story. Yeah, that's I think that's going to wrap up all my questions for you. We end on some silly villains and we talk about Kickstarter a little bit. So we're going. It is almost 47 minutes in. Actually, as of right now, it is 47 minutes in. But that is Payton Mullins for the Astounding Kickstarter issue 3, currently live on Kickstarter. We will have a link down below. Payton, where else can they find you? What do you have? Anything else you want to tell the dozens and dozens of listeners of this channel? We appreciate all of our listeners, all of our people.
Yeah, no, just thanks to you for having me. Thank you all for listening and everything. And yeah, I mean, I'm on, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, the whole deal, at Two-Turd Tony Stark. That's kind of how, I built my platform to, talking about comic books. So if you guys want to follow me there and everything. And also you can get upstate. Also, I have an account called the Astounding ALLSTAR, on, I think, TikTok and YouTube. So you can keep up with ALLSTAR there if you would like as well. So.
All right, guys, that's going to be it for us today. Don't forget, go back to the Astounding All-Star on Kickstarter. We're close to the goal, so I think it's going to get hit. I can't wait to read issue 3. Of course, we've talked about this off the air a few times. We'll hopefully have you back for a signing. It went very well in the shop last time.
Yeah,
but we're gonna wrap it up here. Payton, it was great having you, and we're gonna wrap it up. We'll see you guys on the next one.